Hey there, Banditos! Welcome to the Friday episode of the Dollar Bin Bandits. I'm Mike Farah, and we are ending the week with a unique interview. It is with a retailer. His name is Nate Machado. He owns Blackhole Comics, which is in Norwood, Massachusetts, and he's basically my local comic shop guy. And he talks about everything owning, managing, running a comic book shop. And so we talk about how he chooses the titles he orders, how many that he orders, how he gets new customers in the door, how he keeps old and continuing customers happy, how he plans to renovate the actual store itself, what he wants to do to build the community. And so we get into all of these facets that we really haven't gotten into with our, creator and other industry expert interviews. So it's a interesting perspective. And let's give the mic to Nate. This is Nate Machado of Blackhole Comics. We have a special treat, not a creator necessarily, unless we uncover something I didn't know about, but a retailer, a comic shop owner. His name is Nate Machado. Nate, how you doing?
I'm feeling pretty good right now. So
That's
partial
good.
day off, getting ready to go do it all over again.
As I said, you are the owner or an owner of a comic shop, specifically Blackhole Comics, which is in
Mhm.
Norwood, Massachusetts. But you've had experience before this particular shop in the retail industry. First of all, welcome to the show. And
Thank you.
second of all, we're going to start you off with our usual first question, which is, how did you first discover comics?
Uh, well, there's the general, some found my way as a kid, and you read them on drives with the parents and all that. But what really caught me was probably when I was about 17. So this puts me behind the curve for most people. Me and my buddy went into what used to be a magazine stores, and there was an issue, a cap on the stands where it was like it was just after it was just after Steve Rogers quit, so he was the captain, but I didn't know that. And it's like it's the homage cover to Avengers 4 they're doing, and it's Steve Rogers fights again, or paraphrase that, and he's in the black costume, and people, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Steve Rogers is always Captain America. So I picked that up, I read it, I was like, that's pretty cool. I need to know more, and just went from there. So um, that's basically the way it worked out, and delved into bunches and bunches of other things as the years went by, and kept going with it.
Were you immediately a collector, as in, every issue you got you kept, or were they kind of read and toss aside and
No, no,
trade?
no. I've still got everything, minus a few things I've sold in the store in the last 6 months. I've still got them. You know, buried them away in little things here and there at the start, and then you learn, oh, they make boxes for these things, oh, they make things to put these in, and you go from there. Although over the years I then learned what you really needed and didn't need, but that's another topic.
So as I was saying, you've just opened up Black Hole Comics, I think in the past year, certainly maybe even the past
Well,
6 months.
the way it worked out was is Black Hole Comics used to be New England Comics Norwood.
Right.
So the owner, who actually passed by on Saturday, former owner, I should say, he's looking to retire this year, or that was the plan. So he ended up offering the Malden location and the Norwood locations for sale. Way it worked out was things weren't working out for me at what I was doing, and I was working part-time for him again. And I just said, let's discuss this deal again. And as of December 1st, it was officially mine. And the name didn't come with it, so hence the name change. Uh, but that's basically how it worked out.
How did you land on the name?
It just came to me. It's just something I was like, yeah, that would be good. That sounds cool. And it wasn't it wasn't comic hokey. It wasn't sort of what the previous name was, which was very regionally tagged. So I felt that would stand out on its own. Uh, Everybody seemed to like the idea and the name. Sans my former boss, who said, "You really want to go with that name?" Because he was like, his whole thing was, is you want to use the color black, the term black, that's so negative. And I took it under advisement for about 10 minutes. And then I was like, yeah, no, that's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
So that's it, just sort of came to me as the way I think. And also, black hole, sans the jokes you can make from it, I know that. But, you know, a black hole is a powerful astronomical object out there. So it has that connotation and all that. So I was like, it should work. It's got a sci-fi bent to it. Sci-fi works in comics. So
I think it's cool because it's mysterious, right? You don't, what
there's
is in
also
a
the
black
mystery
hole,
of no
right?
one knows what lies beyond once you fall through the event horizon of a black hole. So yeah, there's that too.
All right, tell me a little bit about your background with comics and retailing. I mean, have you ever owned the store before? And if not,
No.
what made you want to take on this big challenge?
Well, what happened was circa the late 90s, very late 90s, I really didn't have a job. So I had a subscription to what some people may watch this have no idea what it was called, Comic Buyer's Guide, which was a weekly news style paper that would come out. And I had a free ad. So I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. So I was like, screw it. So I put a free ad in Comic Buyer's Guides because I did have some experience as a reader, and I kind of worked under the table for a few local guys or whatever. So I just threw it out there. Hey, you know, just general looking for work. Guy from New England Comics sees it, calls me up, says, "Hey, you still looking for a job?" I said, "Yeah." Says, "Well, you want? We're looking to hire." So I drove up to NEC, went through 3 interviews, which is more than I can say Walmart does. And eventually got hired there just as low level, you know, do this, do that stuff. And I was there for over 15 years, and I worked it up to where I ran the Brockton store. And after many, many years, I got really frustrated and burnt out, and frustrated with some of the things about the company and some of the things about the industry. I said, I'm leaving. I left for about 4 months, didn't like what I was doing, asked to go back, which I was told if it didn't work out, you can come talk, you know, come by the owner himself. I asked to go back. They said no. So I kind of floundered around, and then they took me back part-time, and that went on for a few months. And then from there, the whole "do you want to buy the store" thing came up. And after floundering around, I was like, well, why not? I know the stuff. I just don't know certain things about the business aspect that were never taught to me, but I can learn that along the way, and I'm sure I can run this place better than it's being run. And there you go. So that's kind of what led up to it. Just the fact that the other thing too is all the experience I have. There's really was no way around here locally I was going to put it to any use. I'd have to like get hired by a publisher outside of the area, whatever. And I guess moving wasn't really an option, I guess, in my mind. So I was like, yeah, okay. And like I said, I knew what the store was. I had worked it previously, working up the ladder at NEC. So, and then like I said, having run Brockton, which was a bigger store, which I turned into a bigger store, I felt as though there was something to be had there. So hence, the deal.
Sounds good. Let's talk nuts and bolts. What is your strategy, if you have one right now, for deciding which titles to order and how many copies? Because as you probably know, the market has exploded, at least in terms of the amount of comics that are possibly being put out, not only from the big three as they were, but other independent retailers and even kind of novices that are coming in and doing their own publishing. So how do you make the decisions there?
Well, in some aspects, there's nothing new about that. That's been going on since there was a real direct market, and you had the advent of the black and white explosion of the 80s with all these small publishers coming up and everything. So that's been going on for a while. How you determine it, it's simple. It's what's established that you know sells, what has promise that you think could do well, and what you want to take a risk on. Small press, I take very low risk. I look at what it is, and if I think it's viable and it sounds good and it has possible audience there, okay, we'll give it a try. And that, like I said, you can't order everything. You just can't.
Yeah.
There's no physical way you could do it, and you probably lose money in the end. The stuff that's in between, where it's like something coming from, creator owned and all that, where it's got some cachet with the people with the names behind it. Decide how much of a risk you want to take on it. What do you think it'll fall into in terms of what that creative people can normally sell? And then there's other things that you just kind of go, yeah, that's a home run. It's just how much of a home run, how much do I want to bet the farm on it? And you got, and it's hard on the indie stuff because it's easy to miss something.
Yeah.
Like the Mark Spears stuff, the Monsters thing. No one saw that coming. Absolutely nobody. I mean, some retailers probably saw the covers and thought it looked cool, but probably no one saw it coming where it's like, hey, this small title from Keen Spot is gonna, be like everybody's gonna be trying to track down all this thing. And mind you, it's for the covers. It is for Spears covers. I'm sure the story's okay. I've never really read it. I'm selling it. I sell it. So I mean, stuff like that you can never kind of, you're never sure. You know what I mean? There's other things, like I said, if it's Robert Kirkman doing something as an example, okay, we'll order X many to begin with. And do I want to fudge up? Do I want to fudge up a little more because, hey, if it's a little more successful, good, I'll have them on hand. Other things like, Deadpool, Batman that's coming. Okay, I've already got a number in mind. It's just, do I want to shoot the moon more on that number or not? Okay, how many covers are you giving me? Which ones look really cool? How much am I going to bet on there? Things like that. So, it's not easy. And, I mean, you use your experience and all that a lot to do it. And there's just some things it's like you're ordering this many, no more, because there's no reason to.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing in the marketplace, nothing in the fan base that says, ooh, this is on a trend. It's like, nope, that's what we ordered. That's what we're going to order. If we sell out and somebody needs another copy, I'll see if I can get them one. Yeah.
Do you have an example? You gave an example of comic or, series that you and probably a lot other retailers maybe missed the boat on just because it's part of the wash, right? With the Spears monster stuff. Do you have any that come to mind where you took a chance and it sort of paid off, like you predicted a hit, even if it was moderate?
Recently, like New Avengers 1, what I put in on that did well. It was, probably a little more than possible. Granted, the covers helped, and there's, a couple of customers that want to be like, oh, those are really cool. But you got to try and factor that in too. I mean, there's some people like that. They're obviously not going to do that on every issue, but you get that number one pop. So that was like worked out pretty good. The It's Jeff from Marvel. That's one I was at first like, I don't know what the hell to do with this. And then I kind of read it, looked at it, and I was like, oh, I can put this number in. And even if this thing in 2 weeks is not, say, more than 50% down, it'll be gone though in 6 weeks or whatever. Because the people that are going to buy that are not on a fixed sort of schedule above, new arrivals every week or whatever. They'll come in, they'll see it, ooh, you know what I mean? Or someone will be with them that's not necessarily cares about all the capes and cows stuff, but, oh, that Jeff thing, oh, that looks cool. Or I've heard of that. Oh, hey, they've got It's Jeff. So something like that, you can take the gamble where it's like, you don't have anybody really quote unquote subbing to it maybe, but you're going to sell it and make out. What else?
Speaking of which, I just picked up one from your store for Jeff for my daughter.
Yeah.
And she loved it. And so now you have a lifelong fan. So we'll be back in for more
Yeah.
Jeff stuff.
Those are the things that you kind of need too, as a side bet. I mean, betting on everybody walking in to go, I need my monthly fix of Batman, Wonder Woman, or Spidey. It's great, but you got people that walk in that are not necessarily fixed into that,
Right.
and they're not necessarily looking for that. So things like that. I mean, even Sonic the Hedgehog, which I really wish to God IDW would put more of a full court press on that. It's like it's been around for decades. Everybody recognizes it. And the guy who's going to buy Sonic, or the kid who's going to buy Sonic, is not the guy who's going to be back every other week for Spidey. But
Right.
damn, if Sonic's there, they'll buy it, you know? And that's one where the stores like was ordering like an eyedropper on Sonic. And I'm like, you know what? You can order a few more Sonics. Leave them on the rack. Don't worry about the cycle sheet, say on what how many you sell in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Because all you need is 2 or 3 people to walk in and casually be like, oh, dude, they got Sonic comics. And next thing you know, they take 2 or 3 of them, and there you go.
Right.
I mean, you're not going to shoot the moon here, but you can do that, or have some Sonic trades in stock that are there. They're not gonna be like, sold, say at a rate of maybe Batman or whatever. What if they were? That'd be great. Nothing wrong with that. But they're there, and someone's going to come in and grab them. So those are things where it's like, yeah, you know what I mean? You don't worry too much like, oh, geez, these didn't move through Wednesday through Saturday. But that's not what you worry. That's not my experience is like, don't worry about that. As long as you're not over ordering ridiculously where you're costing yourself money, having stuff like that when taking quote unquote a risk is worth it.
And it sounds like when I started getting into comics, I think, and I'm not sure because I wasn't working behind the counter, but the influence of the weekly pull readers, the ones that you can sort of count on because you have their lists and things, was probably a lot higher than it is now. So you're trying to balance. You obviously want to keep those folks happy
Yeah,
because they're the steady customers, but you also want to
absolutely.
balance
Yeah,
that with the new
yeah,
readers, right? And folks that are
yeah.
just going to come in every once in a
and
while.
and that's the thing. I mean, I guess I say my philosophy is not like, ooh, I want to have 5,000 subs. I'd rather have 5,000 customers than 5,000 subs in a way.
Yeah.
Customers that come in and are looking for things and sort of branching out or whatever. And you have your steady regulars. You have to. Any business has to have steady regulars. So, I mean, if someone wants to do that, I'll do it, no problem. But my whole goal is to be more broaden out and be like, look, if you're open to this, there's a lot of different things in here that could entertain you. So I don't care. You don't want to read Spider-Man and Batman? You want to read zombies? I'll sell you zombies. You want to read something sci-fi related? I'll do that. And there's this, so you're trying to feel out things. It's like like Doctor Who. Doctor Who is not a big seller for, in my experience, ever. Okay. And it's probably more sold generally to the general public in like a Barnes and Nobles or whatever. But having said that, you got to have a little Doctor Who in the store because you never know. So
Right.
you order a couple things. What you try and do is you order, say, some things that are sort of popular, like, oh, this story is recognizable. Even I recognize this story. So you shoot for that. And so you're looking so that someone comes in is like, they're just kind of wandering around, but they go, oh, damn, he's got some Doctor Who. And they may have been like, I was just going to kill some time here, but let me flip through these Doctor Who. Oh, he's got the Cyberman one. You know what? I kind of want to read that. And they'll pick it up. So that's kind of what I'm more looking for than to be sort of the hard. I mean, comics is the store, but to be the hardcore thing, it's like, that's why it's like I said, there's a whole kids section I have, generated for that because, kids are dependent upon, their interests differ, but they want to read stuff and things like that. They're obviously at the dynamic of their parents and all that. So you want to have, but you still want to have things. So it's like I mean, you're specialized, but you don't want to be too specialized where it's like, well, I just have Batman and Spider-Man. If you're not interested in that, well, I've got nothing for you.
Right.
Um, and to be honest, too, the distribution way it is when you're dealing with the major distributors, like a Penguin Random House or a Lunar or well, whatever Diamond morphs into, they'll have stuff like that. So, I mean, you can sort of try it out without having to open up a brand new account for something like that or anything. They'll have things like that. It's just a matter of whether what you want to put some money into it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a tricky balance trying to figure out making sure that people can find what they're looking for that come in often, but also those that are coming in not as frequently, they can also discover things, right? And also
Yeah.
keeping up with the times, right? Because now, like I noticed, as soon as you walk in and you go sort of straight in, you have a manga shelf. They're sort of like right in front, which is certainly like my daughter is getting into or has gotten into manga, and that seems to be like a big
It is.
thing. So you sort of need to have that.
Yeah, and the thing with that is trying to have the right titles, because that's part of what I'm still going through with that is that manga section was kind of not very, it was just leftover stuff. It was just
Right.
dead material and all that. And with manga, I mean, and manga is difficult because you go look at the manga titles out there. It's like there's manga for something. You want to read about, cooking, there's manga books for cooking stuff.
Right.
So that's one where it's like there's so much of it, and if you don't know it, you gotta try and focus in. So I'm trying to slowly fix it, like bring in some of the titles that are known, hopefully. Try a few ones out that are highlighted. Like the difficult thing now is some of the South Korea manga is really hot, but some of that stuff's only available from certain publishers. So if I don't have the hookup, I've got to find a way to get it. And manga's been around for a while. It's had its ups and downs. The 2000s it was there, then the early 2000s it crashed, and now it's come back. So, yeah, it's something to have there. I mean, that section is a work in progress still, because it needs to be a little more relevant. Hence why I've also taken stuff out of there that's just dead material and marked it down. Take that money and be like, okay, well, let me go buy some more Dragon Ball volumes with this money, or go buy some more of this, because at least that's more recognizable. Yeah.
So we're talking about a lot of, trying to balance things for today's market. If you were to sort of zoom out and look at your experience since you started, what do you think the biggest changes have been in, comic book retailing? I mean, obviously the rise of manga is probably one of them, variant covers, but what have you seen in terms of the sort of direction?
I mean, there's more of a direction if you in the young reader market,
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're to believe the news reports and the analysis done and everything, some of the best selling stuff is not Batman Spidey. It's Dogman, or his series before that, which was Captain Underpants.
Right.
Things like that, the young reader market. And that's something that you got to kind of really address, because if you don't want to get your clientele base too old, which is not good, that young reader market is your next feeder. So you got to kind of have Dogman trades, and you got to, again, like Sonic, or things like Powerpuff Girls, or some of the young reader stuff that DC Marvel puts out that's worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
That's something they really don't target very well, with the exception of DC, because Teen Titans Go is, even if there's 8 copies still sitting there of an issue, somewhere along the line they'll be all gone because it's Teen Titans Go. So that young reader market, probably, especially because the companies decided to dump newsstand distribution so many years ago. So it's like, okay, where does your product go now for people to see it outside of a direct market situation? Oh, it goes nowhere. But if you go into Walmart or Target or something like that, there is a young reader section somewhere in there. They'll have the books there, and the kids are going to get exposed to that. So instead of possibly, some random Spider-Man or Batman book that they might find, or some little reprint thing that, you know, if you ever seen those small little reprint books from the 70s or the 80s, that those would end up in the mass markets. Those don't exist anymore. So it's like, okay. I mean, there are certain things that would exist like that, but you find them in a Barnes and Noble, something like that still exists. Then Marvel does have like, or you know, some young reader stuff, but I'm just saying is that you don't have that broad throwout. So without that, you know, I mean, other forms are going to take its place. So it's going to be Dog Man. It's going to be the Babysitters Club. And there's a couple other ones I can't think of, you know what I mean? So that's a big difference in just the terms of, you know, they went so hard into the direct market and were able to be convinced, don't worry about this newsstand stuff, that it's like, okay, well, you don't have that anymore. The direct market is rather static and been rather static for a while in terms of like, there's no major chains or anything like that. So it's like, what are you counting on? And their digital strategy hasn't been that great in comparison to manga. So it's like, okay, your digital strategy is not necessarily feeding as many people either. So that's like the biggest thing, really, is that just in general, that it's so focused down on this that, you know, they're counting on movies, TV, or whatever to backtrack it, you know, which would be fine too if they would actually take advantage of the mediums to advertising. I think I'm going sideways on your question now, but you know, and obviously the advent of the graphic novel, which is now, you know, long in the tooth, but if you're tracking many years, it's like, you know, like I said, yeah, you know, the graphic novel now is like, you know, part of the business model. It's so
Right.
and then to be honest too, not everything is worthy of a graphic novel, but it's going to go into one. I mean, there's, you know, I mean, that's so much the model now that it's like, well, is the series really successful or not? But it's going to
Yeah.
get a trade anyway. Okay, fine.
I mean, I feel like they plan the series now, even ongoing series in, you know, the story arcs such that they can be easily collected and
That
traded
argument's been made for
a
20
long
years
time.
now that they're
Yeah.
writing for these trades, which you don't really have to write for the trade to make a trade.
Right.
You know, you don't. You can write a 3-issue story and a 2-part story and a solo story. There's 6 issues. There's your trade.
Right. Exactly.
You know, because they've also, in the way they've done it, they've also made it so like compilation trades are useless. Like they used to offer like, oh, here's the greatest blah blah trade. So it's got like 5 different Batman stories, and it's like, yeah, I don't want that because no one's going to read that because you've conditioned everybody that every volume is sort of a story, whether it's a part of the story in the long run or it's like, okay, this is the whole story here. So who
Right.
wants a compilation thing? Because they look at it and go, oh, so they're random.
Yeah.
But so you kind of put the kibosh on that aspect of the trade program where it's like, don't bother giving me compilations, guys. You shot yourselves in the foot on that because they used to do that stuff.
Let's talk variant covers because that's been another big one that has taken off since, you know, I'm sure you've been in the industry and certainly in the past 20 years. How much of a role does that play in when you're ordering and how you're placing comics throughout the stores? Because it seems like it's just, you know, it's here now for eternity. It seems like it's more than a trend. How does that enter your calculus?
If the covers are open order, i.e., there's no ratio limitation on them, here they are, order as many as you want. I'll just go through the covers and go, that looks cool, that looks cool, that doesn't look cool, I don't like that one's okay. And I will divvy up the total order based on how I think the covers will sell. Put it like this. I'll give you an example. Captain America 1's out Wednesday, okay? Marvel did 16 covers on that book, okay? I already had a number in mind. The 16 covers didn't change my mind on the number. It was just all how the number was going to break down. and most of them were open order. So like I said, it didn't matter. That one looks really nice. I'll order more of that one than this one. When it comes to the ratio stuff, if I'm going to order enough to get a ratio book, great. If I'm not, then it all depends on whether or not I feel as though I'm going to go to the next level because I can sell the ratio book. So I don't let them dictate my ordering by their covers. I will do what I think is best interest of of the business in its ordering of books. So you can give me an awesome 1 in 50 ratio variant, but if I think I can only sell 35, I'm only selling 35. I'm not going to take on another 15 copies in lieu of that and be like, well, then the ratio of 1 in 50 is going to be this price to cover this,
Right.
Unless someone really came to me and said, I really want it. And I said, well, then you're going to really pay this amount of money because that's what I need to get for it. And they said, okay, I will. And I would be fair about it. I mean, I'm not saying I jack it up, but I'm saying that
Right.
I would be fair about it, because my thing is I mean, it's, like Batman Hush, on Hush 2, the first part, we shot the moon. Okay, we're going to do this one, this one, this one, this one. Everybody's really into it. And at some point, the way you're ordering, certain copies become almost free. So it's like, okay, you know. But subsequently, when you get down the line, you start to go, yeah, I'm not doing that, you know. The only book that's coming up where I might shoot the moon a little is the new Punisher Red Band series, bringing Frank back. That one I'm probably like, I'll go a little heavier than normal. One, because I've seen the 3-page preview. It looks really good. Ben Piercy's a pretty good writer. It's Red Band, so it'll be edgier. And also as like an FU to Marvel, like we shouldn't have been in this position to begin with where you're bringing this character back too. So I'm going to go and shoot the moon and make some money off of this in lieu of your foolish decision several years ago.
Right.
So, but I don't, like I said, I don't let that dictate what I do, because if you start to do that, the next thing you know, you're going, wow, I got a pile of that. Wow, I got a pile of that. Wow, I got a pile,
Yeah.
So, in Brockton, it was easy because when I managed Brockton, it was easy because Brockton kind of had a variant crowd. So it was a little easier to go, yeah, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that. Because I had guys that would probably suck them up, no problem. Norwood's a little different in that it doesn't have the sort of reputation of that. So it's more like a little more guarded in terms of we'll work our way there if we get there.
Yeah.
But if we're not there, that's okay. We'll still sell, but we'll sell what's can be managed and can go. And the side bet to that is I don't have online sales yet, so I don't have the ability to go, well, shit, I'll just throw it online. I mean, I've got to kind of figure out, sell it in the store per se. So, but, and the only other thing I'll say in variants is that, look, the big two guys, they can play around with it. I really wish some of the smaller guys would not bother with it because it can wreck their sales even more. Because if you're let's say you're some new company and you're like, well, we need to do something to get this book noticed. And you go and shoot the moon and pay some really notable artists a bunch of money to do a cover for you or whatever. And you get all these orders so guys can get that cover. But the question is did they read your book? Because you're not going to do that in every issue. And then 4 or 5 issues out when you're like going, oh, gee, look at those numbers. It's like, yeah, those are your numbers because you're not throwing this insane famous guy on a cover, artist on a cover to where like some people will be like, yeah, no, I want that. That looks awesome. But they're not reading your book. And
Right.
small press guys, really need to be wary of that. You want people to read your book. So you're better off almost like make a good cover or make 2 good covers where you go, oh, those are nice. Get some attention. Like Pale Knight's one. Mad Cave did that book, Pale Knight. I totally missed it. And like some people asked me for it, and I was like, oh, okay. And I went and I looked, and I was like, oh, they're right. This is a nice cover. No variant, mind you, just a really nice cover. So it got attention. So I went and got some, and then I ordered appropriate numbers on 2, and 2 sold. And I was like, okay. And that's a case of like I said, it wasn't the variant that drove the interest. It was just a really nice cover. So, there are those cases where I think the industry would be better served if get your book noticed for what it is, spend a little money for a good cover or a couple of good covers, because in the long run, you'll be better off. Because then when you're like really going well and you're like, hey, you know what? Now we could do a 1 in something cover because we got a good audience here and they'll probably do it. We might get the sales bump from that too and earn a little more money. And retailers might be more along the lines to go, yeah, you know what? I think I will order a few more and grab that cover because I've got 2 other guys that would want that book now. So DC and Marvel, they would be best to pull it back a bit. They really should pull it back. Because in some ways, some of them really have no impact. You know, they just don't. And it's one of those things where it's like a little less would be more in this case.
Yeah.
Also, too, like I said, you know, all these exclusive variants, industry would be better off with a little less of those too. I mean, the publishers won't turn down the money if you go to them and say, hey, I want my own exclusive Punisher 1 variant. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, it also takes money, from my perspective, it takes money sort of from someone in, so it takes money and starts directing at things that you're selling already, as opposed to going, you know, that book over there is pretty cool. You might want to check that out. Whereas, well, now the money's going for the other 4th variant Punisher cover he's trying to grab from some other place, as opposed to like, you might like that book. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't really generate a new reading sale. It generates a sale, but not a, you know, someone reading it and enjoying it and all that. So, you know, I mean, I know there's some retailers that have their business models planned out on that. It's not a business model I would want to do because, in my view, for every 10 you do, you're going to have 3 clunkers, 2 okay ones, and 2 that got to pay the bills and make up for the others because there's no way to be 100% locked on. But you know, that's their decision to run that kind of model and do that. Like I said, New England Comics did a couple of them. We did for the Tom King relaunch on Batman, we had Lee Bermejo do one. We got Bermejo. That sold well, but it looked great because it was Lee Bermejo.
Yeah.
You know? We did one for Batman Turtles where it was the animated style. And it didn't do well because it was the animated style and no one was really in. It was like, you know.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying by like you really gotta have the cover, you know.
Yeah.
And one other point, this really rubs me the wrong way, is when the artists end up selling exclusive covers on their sites that are better than the covers offered to me. Because I've seen that. I'm like, that cover that guy artist is selling exclusively that he's got to deal with is better than 3 of the other covers you gave to me to do. Why can't I would rather have one of those than the 3 other ones that I was offering? And that does happen, you know. Fortunately, a guy like, as an example, a guy like J. Scott Campbell, most of his covers are always good. So if he's got his exclusives, usually what he offers up, but like say like Marvel uses, are pretty good no matter what. But there are other guys where it's like, wow, that cover he did for himself is awesome. Why couldn't that one be the one that's given to me to order? So.
It feels like the incentives for every party in the transaction are like against each other. Like, you know, the artist is trying to make a buck on their own. They make more by doing their own exclusives. The publisher makes more by you asking for exclusives. You make more by having just a few good covers. It's kind of a wacky incentive structure. And I think everybody's sort of like addicted to these variant covers for different reasons. And I agree. I don't think it's great for the industry, to tell you the truth.
It has a place. I don't disagree it doesn't have a place because, you know, it's comics. Art I mean, say what you will about having to have a story. It's a visual medium. So, you know, as has been said, I could give you the greatest comic ever written and give it to average guy number 1, and people look at it and go, oh, okay. And then I can take the most cliched story, whatever, say, hey, Jim Lee, draw this for me.
Right.
And as soon as I put it on the shelf, everyone's like, oh shit, that's a new Jim Lee book. You know what I mean? So yeah, the visual aspect to it, you can't deny. My whole thing is that I think the industry would be better off to pull back a bit, cut off some of this stuff, and stop playing it on it so much. Because what they end up doing is they end up creating more you create a collector more than you create a reader.
Right.
And a reader is a collector is somebody who can go, yeah, I want that 1 in 50 hidden gem Mike Zeck cover on Punisher 1. Thank you. You gonna be back for 2? No, I just wanted the Zeck cover because I think his covers are cool. Oh, okay.
Right.
So now I've made a sale, but I don't have a sale coming on issues 2, 3, 4, and 5 from that guy.
Yeah.
You know? So that's the inherent thing with that is while there's a collectible aspect to it, it is entertainment and it is stories. And the whole point is everybody likes a story. So you should be telling stories, and you can play on the art collectibility because the collectability is something that came over decades. You know, no one at DC, DC Comics, when they launched Action Comics 1 said, hey, make sure you save all the paperwork on this so we can do a facsimile 5 years later because the book's going to be $30. It's not how it worked out. All this stuff just sort of gravitated naturally to a secondary marketplace. You can play on it, but in the end, you are paying someone to write a book and to create something and to work on something to entertain an audience. You know, it's like I said, I don't think too many people would tune in for a television show to go, well, it's the same episode this time, but we've got one different action sequence you'll want to see. There it is for 30 seconds. Okay. No, to like try and make some kind of an analogy in terms of like, you wouldn't do that to someone watching a TV show.
Right. Yeah. Well, that all makes sense. It's complicated, but it makes sense.
It's not, it's not complicated. It only gets complicated if you let it get that way. The simple thing is the answer in my view is that yes, it has a role, but pull it back.
Okay.
Give a reason for someone who walks in with $50 to want to spend $50, and I'm using this as a general example, on as many books that entertain as possible, and maybe the 1 or 2 others that are new that he's interested in. As opposed to maybe, and I'm not saying this happens all the time, going, well, I got 50. Oh crap, I want that 1 in 25 that's $25. Let me grab that. Okay, I gotta leave those 3 behind and I gotta grab those, and that's it. Now, sure, I still got my $50, but I didn't sell possibly 3 other titles that in the long term, if he gets hooked into, will cachet me more down the line in terms of revenue and all that. You know what I mean? Yep. So that's the long-term play that stuff like this will get in the way of. You know what I mean? I would, you know what I mean? Those dollars get substituted in. It's like substituted away from what they could be doing in terms of, hey, there were 2 of the books I might have bought this week, but I got to bag that awesome 1 in 50 or 1 in 25 or whatever, for those who, most people have a budget. So, I mean, that's just simple. I mean, so, there's some people might say, hey, Nate, can you hold these couple things for, I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. You know what I mean? But everybody kind of has their own budget. So,
yeah. Yeah, you're making sales, but you may not be making customers, or your customers won't be as long term if they're
you're not giving them a chance to go and say, let me look at the line today, as opposed to going, well, I got those 3 I'm grabbing, and he's got that thing. So the other 3 that might have been out that I was going to look at, maybe I won't look at. Well, or I'll think about, or or something like that. You know what I mean? So like I said, there's nothing wrong with it per se. It's just in how you do it. And it's like I told Marvel one time. I said, like on Psylocke, as an example, and then we can move on if you I'm sure you got something else, but like for Psylocke, the current Psylocke, okay, they kept offering like a 1 in 50, like on every issue, and I'm like, I don't come close to ordering 50 copies of Psylocke, good, bad, or indifferent on the title.
Yeah,
and I said to him, all you're doing here is incentivizing, shall we say, the bigger retailers who will snag that 1 in 50, and you're not really going to affect anybody down below, especially if you're trying to use this as an incentive to say, hey, will you order a few more copies?
Yeah.
If you're really trying to incentivize it, it's like, the guys up around that area, they're fine. Make it a 1 in 15 or something, something like that. And it just, and the thing was, it just seemed like a waste of a piece of artwork too. It's like, well, I know the cover's going to kick ass. I've seen it, but a 1 in 50, why? You know what I mean? You're not gonna do anybody any good with that at 1 in 50. You want to throw it at a 1 in 25 because maybe you got some borderline people that might help you out more. on a title like that. You know what I mean? It's not like it's a pure X-Men book. It's a spin-off book that it's like, it just seemed counterproductive. You know what I mean? Like, why? Especially
Yeah.
when you're 9 issue, when you're 7 issues in. When you're 7 issues into something, you know what you're selling, unless there's something coming in that book, like an appearance or a new story arc or a change in creative, where it's like, oh, I want to bump up. If you're at the 7th issue of something, whatever it is, Batman, Spidey, Walking Dead, whatever, you kind of know where you're at. You're really not gonna make any major adjustment just because, oh, there's a 1 in 50, you
Yeah.
know? So
Okay. Let's move to customers. Specifically new readers or newish readers. What when you see someone, or hopefully they're coming up to you and being like, this is my first time in a comic store, or I'm just starting to get into this stuff. How do you, I don't know, approach that? Like, how do you figure out what to recommend to
I
them?
say,
Or
what do
are
you
there sort of a go-to
you can,
few that you always
what do you
recommend?
enjoy? What do you like? What do you feel you like? What are you thinking about? Because I can't mind read them, and I don't want to automatically go and say, oh, well, you should read Dark Knight Returns, or oh, well,
Right.
you should start with The Walking Dead, or you should read The Death of Gwen Stacy. You know what I mean? Try and
Yeah.
get a feel for it. Just ask, what are your interests? What are your interest levels? What have you seen? Because then you can play off of it, and you'll be playing off of something that they already have their mind sort of focused in on. So they say, well, I'm kind of like into, like, I've heard of that Moon Knight guy. What do you got for that? Oh, okay, let's go look. You know,
Yeah.
or gee, uh, are you into sci-fi? Oh, all right. Well, let's go see if we got some sci-fi books here. Or like I said, horror. Horror is kind of even easier. It's like, oh, okay, we got a few things to work with here, and just go with that, and try and play to what they're indicating to you and acknowledge that. And in that way, whatever you start to present to them, they can start and say, they can look at and say, oh, okay, that's pretty good. Well, that's not quite what I had in mind, but oh, what about that? And you just take it from there. Um, that's the simplest thing to do, because then you know what I mean? Because there's always things you can default to, but that doesn't necessarily mean they want that. I mean, you can
Right.
go, well, Batman, blah, blah, like things. Like, I'm not really. You can start with that, and then the next thing you know, you might be getting, well, I'm not really into that. I don't really feel it. Oh, okay, well, let's go away from Batman then. But it's easier just to let them sort of give you a guide a bit.
You ever run into those type of folks that seem intimidated, like in terms of the actual form of a comic book, and like, how do I read this? Where
Not
do I
not
do I look at
not
the
that so
pictures
much.
first? Yeah,
They're not intimidated by that so much. They get intimidated by walking in and going, "Whoa, I didn't know there's this much stuff."
yeah,
And that's something that I don't even think the comic book companies realize. It's like,
yeah,
even in a mid-sized shop like I got, I mean, if you walked in flat, really with not much, and started to take a look, you'd be like, oh yeah, there is quite a bit of stuff in here. I don't know
yeah,
what the hell I'm doing, you know? Whereas if you walked into, say, an old newsstand shop or whatever, you know, it's going to be like the magazines are here and all that. Like, oh, the comics are over there. And you kind of
yeah,
walk by and see. And, depending on how much they want to put into it, is how much is there to see. Or the classic, it's on a spinner rack thing. Well, here's the spinner
right,
rack. This is it. You know what I mean? You walk into a comic shop, it's like, okay, well, this 8 feet of by 10 feet right here are my DC section. Here are all the DC trades. Oh, okay. And then, oh, we go over here and here's 12 feet of Marvel trades, or whatever, whatever, just using the trades. And the other thing is the other iterations of every character. So it's like, okay, there's Batman. Oh, but we got Batman and Robin. There's Batman, the Long Halloween here. There's also this. That's what's more the thing, is that, and that in some ways it's hard to compensate for, because if someone kind of walks in and doesn't interact with you and they kind of start looking around, and if they're like saying to themselves, holy crap, they might be like, I don't know what, and they might walk out and you never have anything from it, because like I said, it can be kind of overwhelming. The format itself, not really. Most people understand the format, sequential storytelling. So that's not really much of an issue. But the nature of the beast in 80 years of publishing and having inventory and all that and everything, that can be more the where the hell do I go, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's sort of paralysis of choice. There's just so
right,
much to
right.
choose from. Yeah.
That's I remember one time there was a study done as to like was it BJ's wholesale, I think it was, whatever. It's like, why there's only like 4 kinds of mustard. Because they did a thing, and it's like when you go to the grocery store and there's 12 kinds of mustard, you'll get so many percentage of people that will go, I don't know what I want, and they'll just walk away. So they're like, no, we're not going to do 12, we're going to do 4. There you go. And people will make a choice off of that.
Right.
So yeah, it's that kind of thing. And then of course you have the whole sort of, where do I start thing, which I tell everyone, and I'll always tell everyone, look, grab something. If I can't give them the place to start, I say, if something looks like you're interested in, grab it, read it. If you like it, you can always go forward, and then
Right.
you can always go back, because it's like no one. That's the thing about nowadays too, is that really the fan nowadays has it really, really easy, because it's like if they're like, gee, I want to read Spider-Man. I wonder what's a good place to start. Let me jump on my computer and find out. Whereas years ago, you didn't have that. You'd walk in and go, what do you got? And you'd start from somewhere and hopefully be able to go backwards or forwards. And with the trades, it's even easier because you can just go like, let me know when that story's in trade and I'll pick up volume 1. And then I will be back in 3 months for volume 2, and so on and so forth. So in many ways, it's easier in that aspect if you want to do something. But I always tell everybody, it's like, because you can't always pick up the TV show at the beginning. I know there's a ton of stuff that's streamed where you can, but sometimes you walk into stuff. And if you walk into it and like it, good. You can always walk backwards and go, what was before this? So I can know what went before, and then can keep going forward. So, those are some of the aspects of like running the shop when you run into people in terms of what they want to do or what they're trying to figure out to do.
And what role do events like New Comic Book Day and the release of certain movies, do they? I mean, you're definitely going to get a bump on Free Comic Book Day. Sorry, not New Comic Book Day. But like the movies and maybe if you have signings, are those things that you sort of plan like attendance spikes or
Well,
more traffic?
movies, you can only, my experience with that is you anticipate if you've got a good film, you're going to sell collected trades of that particular film's subject matter for a while. If you've got a bad film, you're going to die really fast.
Yeah.
Because you don't have anything in the film telling people, hey, go here to get this if you're interested. People going to have to find that out on their own. And then their interest level is going to be generated by how into that film they are. If they're really great, then they're really interested. So, like the best effect I can tell you are the Christian Bale Batman trilogy. That every time that those 3 films came out, they had a real positive impact on Batman trade sales. And the better the film, the longer it lasted. That's kind of the effect you get, because there's unless you're going to openly run television ads or some kind of ad program to let people know in the area that you've got this stuff after with the film out, you're basically hoping that, okay, it does well, and they'll do research, and they'll end up gravitating to you because they're interested in finding some stuff. That's kind of how it works out. And so like I said, that's why I'm hoping for a really good Superman film and a really good Fantastic Four film, and there's already sort of, there's interest showing there ahead of it, because the trailers have looked good and everybody seems to be pretty positive about it. So if they come out and do well, then that should be good for everybody all around. In terms of Free Comic Book Day, it's a nice one-day event. I've long since past believed that it doesn't really move the needle at all. It's something people look forward to. They get some free stuff. The regulars get to come in and bag another book for free that really they don't need because they're already reading. But God forbid the publishers publish a Free Comic Book Day book now that's a reprint. It's got to be original material. I don't know why. But there's I've never seen a correlation where it ever actually had a positive effect, because it's just turns into the comic dudes come because they want the free book. Okay, fine. You run some kind of sales special, is fine. They'll grab some stuff. You get people that hear about it, come in, grab some stuff. Maybe they'll pick up some stuff. And then you got some people that just sort of like, oh, they literally just make it. They know they're going to go grab something for free and they'll see you next year. And you don't get anything from them. So, and again, that all depends on how big you make the day, how much you want to budget out to make the day big. But if Free Comic Book Day was supposed to do what it was supposed to do, you have a lot more readers in 20 years. It's just an event day now for people who do stuff. And
doesn't have a tail.
You take the kids over and all that and everything, that's
right.
fine, everything. But there's no, the way I put it is this, it's like, because where the idea came from. If I'm standing in a grocery store and I give you a free sample of a hot dog and you eat it and like it, well, guess what? You're coming to the supermarket every week, or at least every week and a half. So the odds of you buying those hot dogs are pretty good if you go, oh yeah, I like those hot dogs. Make sure you grab them when you go to the store, or I'll grab them when I go there. But if I just give you a free book that you read for nothing, that you only kind of came in for because you heard about it or you're whatever, unless you read it and are really hooked by it, you're probably not coming back.
Yeah.
Because it's not part of your routine.
Right.
And all that. So that's part of the thing with that. I mean, giving away free food samples is not the same as giving away free comics, you know?
Right.
And I'll tell you, I'll give you another example. Like when New England Comics had the store here in New Bedford, and the Wolverine film came out, the local, the theater down here was going to show Wolverine. So it's like, I talked to the place, they're like, oh yeah, if you want to set up a table for a couple of the showings and have some stuff there and all that, it's great. I was like, okay, fine. So it's like, okay, let's bring some trades, we'll bring some shirts, we'll sell, sell some stuff. And as it turned out, I don't know if it was Marvel or what company, they sent a bunch of free foam claws. Like, the number one foam finger you do at a football game. So they had foam claws. So I'm like, I don't know, we'll bring those with us. So I'm there. And I learned the hard lesson. It's like, nobody really wanted to buy any trades or anything and carry them into the movie theater. And no one, when they came out, was looking to buy stuff after seeing the movie. They wanted to go. But damn, when those people saw those free Wolverine foam claws, which I was going to give out to for sales, I was like, yeah, go ahead, take it. That's what they, and let's watch the Wolverine film here, all that. No one really seems that interested in buying stuff, but they'll take the free foam claws.
Yep.
So that's why I say
it's a catch-22, right?
That's why I say the companies would be better off taking the money and going into a long-term ad program or whatever, something like that, to garnish, as opposed to just going, well, we do Free Comic Book Day and all that. And it's like,
right.
Yeah, but what about after that day? That's why it's like, DC used to have a co-op program. Have a co-op program and make it a good one, and don't make it so that the only downside about the DC co-op program is, God, you had to jump through so many hoops and had to run through their legal department and everything. And what was it, 80% of the ad had to be DC product and 20% was you and all that. But they had it at the time. They don't have it anymore, but they had it. Those things would be more useful.
Yeah.
Go spend your dollars. Like I said, if IDW went out there and spent dollars to go, we need to tell people we do a Sonic comic. I'd be like, go do it. Yes. You want me, can I get in my name in on this or whatever? Let me know.
Yeah, I like the word you use, routine. Like, how do we make the comic shop and the comic experience more of a routine rather than, around any of these one-time
Well, it becomes
events.
routine for those who are into the hobby and into the reading.
Right.
Make it more routine than that would literally be, you need more stores. You need more footprint to where it's more of an accessible avenue. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's got to be the only multi-million-dollar industry where there's no nationwide retail chain or whatever. Nothing out there that, I mean,
it's true.
I'm just just saying that, I mean, yes, you've got some big boys like Midtown or a couple guys like that and everything like that, but you know, despite all the genius people in business out there and everything, no one's come along and said, I can do this on a national level as a retail chain and sell this stuff for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I don't say I have the answers. I'm not saying that's me, but I'm just saying it's one of the things I've noted, you know.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And that's why I say the biggest mistake the companies made were when they said, or were convinced that we don't need newsstand distribution anymore. We don't need to put our stuff out that way anymore. Now, granted, it would be really hard now, seeing as how magazine stores are kind of gonzo.
But yeah.
And also it's difficult because anything like a Barnes and Noble is going to tell you what's the retail price point on it. It better be $9.99 or we're not even having this discussion, because they're not going to be interested in that.
Yeah.
So that's, but I will say this, there has to be a possibility, because if Walmart is still willing to sell like People Magazine and those rag magazines at the checkout,
the register, yeah,
okay, and those things are returnable, and I can tell you that because I worked at a Walmart and I know this. Also, the grocery stores that still do it, those are returnable too. Someone comes in and merchandises that stuff, deals with that stuff. Granted, it's not on the level like it used to be, but it still exists. If it still exists, then there has to be some avenue on.
Yep. All right, Nate, as we come to a close, I have two more questions for you, okay. More general. One is, what would you say is the biggest misconception about running a comic shop?
That it's all fun, that it's not work, or or a bit, in business. I mean, it is, granted, you're not shoveling manure or, baking in 80-degree heat, laying a cable line, but it is work and it takes effort and nothing magically happens. And, if whatever you've seen on the Comic Book Men TV show, that's complete BS, absolute BS. Okay. That's not how a comic shop operates. At least not the ones I've been dealt with. Yeah. And, it takes an effort to get everything done, so, and there are bills to pay like anything else. And there are problems that arise. You got to figure out, gee, what do I want to do with this? What do I want to do with that? Just in, things like that. So, I mean, but yeah, you're surrounded by Batman and Spider-Man and all, so it's not so bad. You just want to make, as much money as possible as you can with Batman and Spider-Man and all that. So,
do you think there's still a comic book guy like from The Simpsons kind of stigma associated with
because
shops?
there are guys that actually still operate like that, and I every once in a while I will have people tell me like, yeah, I went to this guy's store and like, they're describing the situation. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know why he acts like that, but it's still like that, sort of attitude or whatever that, granted, I have sometimes my bad days where I'm like kind of behind the counter and I'm like, I really don't want to talk to anybody right now. I really, but I kind of mediate it as best I, but there's times people tell me like, well, like I went over there and the guy said this, or like he took it from me. I'm like, and I don't get it because it just seems, it doesn't make any sense to me, like the whole, if you ain't gonna buy it, I ain't gonna get up off my seat. I'm like, I'm not about that. I'll,
Yeah.
move around, walk out there, get out on the floor and all that. Or at least, you get on the edge of the counter area and see what's going on, see what people are watching, doing, see what's going on. You never know, see if someone's going to need a hand or something. But
yeah, I think
it's still kind of out there.
Still there, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's counterproductive, not only to the shop itself, but to the entire like hobby and industry, because people that go in and have that experience, they're not only not going to come back to that store, they're probably never going to come back to shops like that.
And I have to be honest, like I said, running stores, like sometimes I have a bad day, or I'm having a bad day, and I try and be like, I may not be as out there as I normally am. I'm like, well, let me just relax here for a minute or whatever, and just not,
right,
because one thing about the Norwood location is that there are like parents and kids, and those are the ones that I want coming back if possible.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like, so I'll go out of my way too to like, to help them out. Like there's a grandma with her two kids the other day, and like, one kid found something really fast, and she's trying to tell the other kid find something. And he like goes Deadpool, and I looked at her, I said, "No, I don't think because he's like no more than 10. Like,
Right.
no, I wouldn't recommend Deadpool." And then she's like, "Well, think of something." He goes, "Walking Dead." I said, "No, no, no, no." Because she doesn't know any. Literally, she's
Right.
like, "I don't." I'm like, "No, no Walking Dead, no." And
Yeah.
and eventually, it became one of those things where it's like, time ran out and it was like going, and I didn't get in front of that. I'm like, if he's like trying to like worm his way to something that he's not going to get, that's on the kid, because I've seen that.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes you gotta let it go, because it's like it's a learning lesson.
Yes.
Grandma
Yeah.
says pick something, it's time to go, do it, or you're going.
Right. And we're back. Hey, I love talking to Nate. He has an interesting perspective. As we said earlier, he is a retailer. I love to hear, how he and others that own comic shops think, how they keep, there's sort of the lifeblood, really, of the comics industry. There's not really many other places that you can get comics. I mean, shows, of course, sometimes online, but you got to go to that local comic shop and keep them busy. So we'd like to see what he's doing. We wish him well. I would say if you're in the area, go visit. And particularly this Sunday, he has Big Ryan's Tall Tales. He has an event. And this is a storyteller, mostly for little kids, but I'm sure everyone would enjoy storytelling. Go visit it. That's the 17th, August 17th at Blackhole Comics in Norwood, Massachusetts. So check out Big Ryan's Tall Tales. Thanks, Nate, for being on the show. Thank you all out there for viewing and for listening this whole week. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. We've got a whole nother week and then on after that of episodes. So come back here next week and we'll do it together. Peace.